Hello, friends. Welcome to volume number 12 of our National Park Disappearances series. According to NamUs, over 600,000 people go missing each year in the United States. Now, a large portion of these cases are solved within a matter of days. However, some cases fall through the cracks and remain unsolved, sometimes for decades or more. Here's another 10 of the most unusual national park disappearances we've uncovered. Number 10, Joshua Smoky. 41-year-old Joshua Smoky was going through a rough patch in late 2019. He was struggling with addiction and had recently been kicked out of his father's home. After having nowhere else to stay, Joshua took to staying in his car and traveling around, looking for a floor or a sofa to crash on. In early October, his mother, Janie Marvin, deposited $3,000 into his bank account after he told her that he needed the money to help a woman he had met. The woman in question has not been named, and we will be referring to her as Miss X for the duration of this episode. On October 7th, an Olympic Park ranger picked Joshua up and dropped him off in the Shadow Mountain region of the Olympic National Park. According to Missing NPF, Joshua wasn't carrying any supplies and wasn't wearing suitable clothing to go hiking or camping. The ranger also noticed that Joshua was barefoot and warned him against camping as it wouldn't have been safe. The ranger who picked Joshua up reported that he offered Joshua assistance multiple times, but each time Joshua refused. Unable to be convinced, Joshua stepped out of the ranger's car and wandered into the wilderness of Olympic National Park, barefoot and unprepared. Just before he disappeared, Joshua sent a cryptic message to his father saying, "I've given all my belongings to this person, Miss X, and I'm in trouble. They want me gone. I need a getaway car quick." In the messages, Joshua told his father that he was in Port Angeles, Washington, and needed an evacuation ASAP. However, when his parents arrived, there was no sign of him. After they failed to make contact with him, Joshua was officially reported missing, and the Olympic Park Rangers began their search. In the ensuing weeks, the Olympic Park Service and the Port Angeles Police Department used ground and air crews to look for Joshua, but there was no sign of him. His family were distraught and made multiple appeals for anyone with information to come forward. Then, a few weeks after Joshua had disappeared, his mother, Janie, made a shocking discovery. While looking for her son, Janie found Miss X driving Joshua's car and found that she had been using his debit card. Also in her possession were his phone, ID, and wallet, along with 3 letters supposedly written by Joshua, signing over all of his worldly possessions to her. Miss X made a string of bizarre claims and statements to Janie, telling her that Joshua was, quote, on a journey of self-discovery, and that he would be back when he was ready. Now, this did little to calm Janie's nerves, and only compounded her fears that something terrible had happened to Joshua. This bizarre claim was backed up by an apparent sighting of Joshua at the Burger King in Sequim, Washington. According to official reports, the witness claims to have approached Joshua and asked him if he was the man featured on the missing persons posters around town. He replied that he was, but that he didn't want to speak to his family or go home. Not wanting to press the matter any further, the witness left him alone and contacted the police. After this alleged sighting, Joshua's case fell quiet until May 2021, when a shocking new clue was sent to Janie via Facebook. Janie told mycalumcounty.com that a map was sent to her via Facebook from a friend who knows the person who drew it. According to the map's author, the map shows the exact location where Joshua was shot and buried back in 2019. However, despite an extensive search of the area, no sign of Joshua has ever been found. Deputy Brian King told the press, "We executed a search warrant and excavated a very large area, much larger than where the map indicated he may have been buried, and we did not discover a body or any additional evidence." As of now, Joshua Smoky remains missing, and authorities believe that he was a victim of foul play. Joshua is described as a white male with brown hair and brown eyes. He stands 5'7" to 5'10" tall and weighs between 150 to 190 pounds. He was last seen in the Shadow Mountain region of the Olympic National Park on October 7, 2019. If you have any information, you're asked to contact the Port Angeles Police Department on 360-452-4545. Number 9. Austin O'Neill Chase. On January 13, 2021, the Pierce County Sheriff's Office noticed a silver Ford Escape speeding through Buckley, Washington. As they made chase, the car continued to speed through the side streets and ended up racing down State Route 165. Officers followed the car, put on their lights, and signaled for the car to pull over, but the driver was determined to keep going. No matter how hard they tried, the silver Ford failed to pull over, and soon the chase was on. The chase continued as the driver and officers of the Pierce County Sheriff's Office fiercely tried to outdrive one another. After traveling through several towns, the officers called it a day, realizing that they weren't going to be able to catch up to the driver. During the pursuit, they had logged the details of the car, and once they were back at the station, they would be able to conduct a full investigation. Bizarrely enough, the same silver Ford Escape was found a few hours later near Evans Creek ORV Park area in the Mount Rainier National Park. The officers immediately recognized the car from their chase earlier that day and approached the vehicle, hoping to speak to the driver. When they got closer, they realized that the car was on the side of a steep embankment, and there was no sign of the driver. Upon checking the license plate and registration of the car, they found that it belonged to 36-year-old Austin O'Neill Chase and attempted to call him, but there was no answer. It wasn't until later that day that the circumstances of their discovery became clear to the Pierce County Sheriff's Office. When Austin failed to make contact with his family, he was reported missing, and his missing person report caught the attention of the Pierce County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office put two and two together and knew that they had been the last ones to see Austin on January 13, 2021. A search and rescue mission was conducted with ground teams and sniffer dogs being dispatched to the area, but sadly, no sign of Austin has ever been found. With the one-year anniversary of Austin's disappearance slowly creeping up on them, his family is growing more and more desperate for answers. Austin was last seen on the Fairfax Bridge in the Mount Rainier National Park. There's been no activity on his cell phone or bank cards, and authorities are extremely concerned for his well-being. Austin is described as a white male, 6'1" and 180 pounds, with shaved brown hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing a black or blue zip-up hoodie, light blue jeans, and a white t-shirt. Anyone with any information is urged to please contact the Pierce County Sheriff's Department at 253-798-7530. Next, number 8, we have Christopher Jarman. 31-year-old Christopher Jarman was last seen on January 11, 2021, at his home in Everett, Washington. There are few details in Christopher's case. However, the details that have been released to the public paint a very worrying picture of what may have happened to Christopher. The Jarman family have since suffered other tragedies, with Christopher's uncle passing away in February 2021, and Jenny Jarman, Christopher's mother, being unable to work due to a knee injury. A family friend has set up a GoFundMe on their behalf, and donations are welcome. The full details of Christopher's disappearance are not known, and according to press releases, he was last seen on January 11, 2021 at his home. According to his family, Christopher was suffering from symptoms that aligned with paranoid schizophrenia, believing that the government was trying to kill him and that he was unsafe around his family. His family has stated that they believe Christopher has taken his own life and has believed that at the time of his disappearance, Christopher was in the possession of a firearm. Just 2 days after he disappeared, Christopher's car was discovered along Highway 20 across from Goodell Creek Campground in the North Cascades National Park. Unfortunately, there was no sign of Christopher or his dog Bella, and park rangers continued their search efforts well into the next few days. While no sign of Christopher has ever been found, the GoFundMe set up on behalf of the Jarman family states that Bella, Christopher's dog, was found 14 days later in a distressed state. She was malnourished, had an injured leg, and was found half a mile away from where Christopher's car had been discovered. Bella was taken to the vet, but unfortunately, this latest development didn't bring the Jarmans any closer to finding Christopher. On January 30th, 2021, 4 search dog teams were assembled to look for Christopher in the North Cascades National Park, but like previous searches, they failed to turn up anything. It has been just over a year since Christopher disappeared, and while his family believe that he may have taken his own life, they want nothing more than to find out the truth and bring him home. Christopher is described as a white male, 6 foot 3 inches tall and 160 pounds. And anyone with information is asked to please contact the North Cascades National Forest Rangers on 360-854-7200. Number 7, Yvonne Wood Covington. For the family of Yvonne Wood Covington, the last year and a bit have been nothing short of a nightmare. On December 26, 2020, Yvonne left her son's home in Fort Payne, Alabama, asking him if she could use his car to go and buy cigarettes, and as the hours passed, it became obvious that something had happened to her. According to her sister, Paula Sims, she was living with her son in Fort Payne for a few days, and she had asked him to use his car to go and buy cigarettes, and no one has seen her since. It's been a nightmare. Each day makes it harder. In the very beginning, we sat around and wondered if she's outside, if she's cold, if she's hungry. Is she lost, or did someone snatch her up? Just hours after she disappeared, the car that she was driving was discovered on the bridge at Alabama Highway 35 in the Little River Falls National Park parking lot. The National Park Service searched the car for any clues, but all they could find was Yvonne's phone. A full missing person report was filed by Yvonne's family, and following the discovery of the car, a search of the Little River Falls National Forest commenced. According to news reports, the Fort Payne Fire and Police Departments, Fisher Rescue Squad, and aerial drone operators all joined in with a search to find Yvonne, but were unable to find any trace of her. As the days passed, the concern for her welfare grew, and her husband, Quasi Covington, commented that he had concerns for her mental state. Shortly before she went missing, Yvonne spent 5 days at the Gadsden Regional Medical Center, where she received treatment for her mental health. This hospitalization fueled fears that Yvonne had disappeared and had potentially harmed herself, possibly even taking her own life. Despite numerous searches, there's been no sign of Yvonne, and over a year later, her family are still waiting for answers. Yvonne's sister Paula told 48 WAFF, "I feel like they are doing everything they can do, and I do think they are making efforts, but it's just what you do next after you've searched all that ground." Anyone with any information about Yvonne's disappearance or whereabouts is asked to contact the Fort Payne Police Department at 256-845-1414. Next up, number 6, Vincent G. 25-year-old Vincent G. had a promising future ahead of him. In his LinkedIn bio, he described himself as a responsible, motivated, and team-oriented individual. Bilingual in English and Indonesian, with an intermediate understanding of Chinese and conversational Japanese. At the time of his disappearance, Vincent was working at West Seattle Foods and had recently finished his master's degree in business administration. By all accounts, Vincent's future was promising, and it was beginning to flourish right before his eyes. However, June 2020 would see that future be taken away from him, and as of 2022, Vincent G. remains missing. According to the Missing NPF website, Vincent was last seen on June 19, 2020, hiking the Van Trump Trail towards Mildred Point in the Mount Rainier National Park. It appears that Vincent had entered the park in the days beforehand and had previously hiked the Alta Vista Trail. When Vincent failed to return home that same evening, he was reported missing and an investigation was opened. The Pierce County Sheriff's Office, along with the National Park Service, worked together in a joint effort to locate Vincent. However, they found no sign of him. Days later, Vincent's car was discovered in the Visitor Services Center in Longmire, Mount Rainier National Park, but his car held no clues as to his whereabouts. Bizarrely, 2 other men, Matthew Bunker and Talal Sabah, also disappeared in the Mount Rainier National Park around the same time as Vincent. The bodies of Talal and Matthew were both recovered in June 2020 and August 2020, respectively. Delilah's cause of death has not been released, while it's been determined that Bunker fell while climbing. For Vincent's family and friends, their search continues. According to Vincent's father, in October 2020, K-9 units were assembled to try and locate Vincent and help the numerous volunteers and police officers in their search. As of this day in 2022, there have been no further updates in Vincent's case, and his family are desperate for answers. Vincent G. is described as an Indonesian male, 5 foot 5 inches tall, with black hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing a blue t-shirt, black pants, and was carrying a dark blue drawstring bag. Anyone with any information is asked to contact Patty Wold of the Mount Rainier National Park Service at 360-569-6701. Number 5. Ian Eccles. 41-year-old Ian Eccles had planned to spend Sunday the 17th of May 2020 turkey hunting with his friend deep in the Okanagan-Wenatchee National Forest. Ian and his friend had gone turkey hunting together before and had thoroughly enjoyed themselves, so much so that they had agreed to meet in the same spot again for another trip. As Ian's friend pulled into Spur 130 off Forest Service Road 9738, he was waiting to be greeted by Ian's beaming smile. However, as he parked his car, he noticed that there was no sign of Ian. His friend had received a text message from him the day before saying that he was in the Liberty area. So where was he now? The concern for Ian's welfare only grew when he failed to show up for work on May 18, 2020, something that was completely out of character for the man. His daughter, 22-year-old Audrey Elkins, told the Seattle Times, "He's not the type of person who says he's going to show up somewhere and not do it." When Ian failed to show up for work, his boss and his friend contacted his ex-girlfriend and his daughter, who in turn filed a missing person report. The search for Ian ensued almost immediately, with officers and volunteers searching the Okanagan-Wenatchee National Forest in the area that Ian was last believed to have been in. Days after Ian was reported missing, searchers discovered Ian's car on Forest Service Road 9738. The rear window had been knocked out, and there was one other thing that puzzled his friends. Someone was driving the car, and that someone was not Ian Eccles. His friends tried to talk to the driver and get as much information as they could, but within minutes the man had ran off, leaving behind Ian's car. Bewildered by what they had just experienced, Ian's friends took a moment before peering inside the car. Their hearts sank when they realized that there was blood all over the interior. Ian's disappearance has now turned into a homicide investigation, and while searching for Ian, the U.S. Forest Service made a very puzzling discovery. Tucked away off Spur Road 130 was a green Ford Expedition that was registered to 80-year-old Nancy Holtz. She had been missing reported on May 13, 2020. Sadly, Nancy's body was found at her home on May 11, 2020, with the lead investigator reporting, because of the state of decomposition and that no signs of trauma were visually seen, no autopsy was performed and she was later cremated. Both Ian's and Nancy's cars had been parked close to each other, and it would later transpire that they were stolen by the same man, George Alcantara Gonzalez. While Alcantara Gonzalez was not charged in connection with Nancy's death, investigators found evidence to connect him to Ian's disappearance. Inside Ian's car, they found blood, along with Alcantara's driving license, and within Nancy's car, they found 2 guns, a parking pass that was registered to Ian, and Ian's blood-stained sleeping bag. Those who had discovered Ian's car also positively identified Alcantara as the person they saw driving the car. And now the chase was on. What started as a missing persons case had now morphed into a recovery mission and a search for a fugitive. After almost 10 days of hunting him and the involvement of 100 officers, George Alcantara was finally captured and arrested and refused to speak to the police about what happened to Eccles. According to news reports, Alcantara pled guilty to 8 felonies, however has not yet been tried for the murder of Ian Eccles. According to ICE, Alcantara had faced 6 charges between 2017 and 2019 for crimes such as DUI and theft. MissingNPF.com reports that on March 19, 2019, he, meaning Alcantara, was arrested by the Seattle Police Department for 3 counts of failure to comply and detained at the King County Jail. On March 21, 2019, ICE lodged an immigration detainer, but the jail failed to honor it, and he was released back into the community without prior notification to ICE. The case against Alcantara is currently ongoing, and Ian's family are desperate for answers and want nothing more than to know where his body is so they can bring him home and put him to rest. Evidence put forward by investigators suggests that Ian died on the night of May 16, 2020, or in the early morning hours of May 17, 2020. Anyone with any information is urged to come forward and contact the Kittitas County Dispatch Center at 509-925-8534. Number 4. Richie Ambrose Collins. 58-year-old Richie Ambrose Collins was officially reported missing on April 30th, 2019, when park rangers determined that his car had been unattended for 2 weeks at the Colonial Creek Campground in the North Cascades National Park. When park rangers checked the car, they noticed that his car keys were sitting on the roof, but there was no sign of Richie. There's a limited amount of information out there about Richie's disappearance, and his daughter, Brittany, has been instrumental in keeping her father's case alive. She's also kept pressure on local authorities to keep the investigation moving. According to the Whatcom County Sheriff's Department, we found out that the family said Mr. Collins had a lot of firearms in his possession. He was in the Army. He worked for Customs and Border Patrol, and his firearms were nowhere to be found, and his gun safe was open as well, and no firearms were inside that safe. We searched the residence, we searched crawl spaces, we didn't find any firearms. We just don't know where the guns are at this time and what would happen with that many guns. Family members said that he had at least 30 guns in his possession. So it's just odd that that many guns are missing and we haven't found them yet. There were extensive searches of the area and the surrounding trails were searched as well. However, there was no sign of Richie. The most frequent update in Richie's case comes from Brittany, his daughter, who runs the Facebook page Missing Richie Collins. In a post dated December 18, 2021, she wrote, "Hello, NamUs Regional Program Specialist. I need your help, please. Can you confirm if my father, Richie Collins' DNA and detailed description of his remains, including date, location of discovery, and items found with him, were sent to you within 30 days of discovery of his remains as required by Washington state law? He went missing in March or April of 2019. My family and myself kindly asked a dozen times for him to be entered into NamUs, and Detective Gates told us over and over again he was. As you can see, his NamUs case was not created until December 2019. Now, his remains were found in July 2021, and it has been 6 months. His unidentified remains are not showing up on NamUs, so I need help. I'm forwarding you some emails." Gary Goldfogel, Whatcom County Medical Examiner, said he sent the required by law information to NamUs within days of my dad's remains discovery. They have lied and ignored me, and I just want the truth. I want to lay my father to rest with proper military honors. He is a veteran, served 23 years in the Army, 10 years for Customs and Border Protection. Now, from what Brittany has posted to the Missing Richie Collins Facebook page, it appears as though DNA has not been performed on the remains believed to be her father, leaving her and her family in limbo. According to Richie's NamUs profile, he is still listed as missing, and no details about his remains have been provided. Please help Brittany and the Collins family apply pressure on the necessary authorities. You can support Brittany by searching Missing Richie Collins on Facebook. Anyone with any information pertaining to the case is asked to contact the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office at 360-778-6600. Number 3. Daniel Coog Stevenson. 38-year-old Daniel Coog Stevenson was last seen at his home on Route 160 near Mesa Verde National Park, Colorado, in May of 2020. The details of his disappearance are extremely sparse, and there is only one official press release pertaining to his disappearance. According to this press release, Daniel was last seen in May of 2020 by either friends or family, but wasn't reported missing until December of that year. It's believed that Daniel either worked as a day laborer or mechanic and lived at his home near Mesa Verde National Park alone. A search of his property was conducted in May of 2021. However, The Montezuma County Sheriff's Office failed to find any sign of Daniel or any clues to his whereabouts. In a press release, the Montezuma County Sheriff Steve Nowlin said, "It's a big mystery. We don't know where he's at. Sometimes people just take off. We can't show that there's been any foul play whatsoever." As of writing this episode, Daniel Coog Stevenson still remains missing, and the Montezuma County Sheriff's Office is appealing to anyone with any information to please come forward. Daniel's family has been unable to provide a recent photograph of him, but he is described as 5 foot 8 inches tall, 130 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. Again, anyone with any information is asked to please contact the Montezuma County Sheriff's Office at 970-565-8452. Number 2, Shirley Bauman. 61-year-old Shirley Bauman was last seen hiking towards Lake Blethen, an area with large cliffs and treacherous terrain in the Snoqualmie National Forest, on July 20th of 2020. According to reports, Shirley was using the Quartz Creek Trail from Middle Fork Road in North Bend. It has not been stated whether other hikers saw Shirley on this path, and anyone who may have seen her is asked to come forward. When Shirley failed to return home days later, she was officially reported missing, and the National Park Service, along with the King County Sheriff's Office, began air and land searches for her. While investigators failed to find Shirley, they did find her camping and hiking equipment, which added to their concerns for her safety. According to friends and family, Shirley was an extremely experienced hiker, and it seems out of character for her to leave her gear behind. Shirley's car was also found abandoned near a trailhead, but since this discovery, there has been no sign of Shirley. Air searches were called off in late July. However, ground searches continued, and the King County Sheriff's Office is still investigating Shirley's disappearance. At the time of her disappearance, Shirley was believed to have been carrying a phone and wearing brown sunglasses, and also carried reading glasses. Shirley is described as a white female, 5 foot 4 inches tall, 145 pounds, with hazel eyes and blonde hair. Anyone with information is encouraged to contact the King County Sheriff's Office at 206-296-3311. Shirley's daughter, Jane, gave a statement to the press in August 2020 saying, "I would like people to know my mom is still missing in the Middle Fork area off the Quartz Creek Trail on the way to Lake Blethen. If people are going out hiking in the area, to keep their eyes open for any sign of her. She's my best friend, and I just want her home. I know she is still out there somewhere. She can't just vanish." A beloved person in the community, people saw her almost every day working with the flowers at Ace Hardware, riding her bike, or walking the Snoqualmie Valley Trail. She loved to help the homeless community, buying them sleeping bags or ground mats, even tents. I know she is missed by many. I just really want my mom and best friend back. And finally, number 1, Lucy Schumann. 48-year-old Lucy Schumann was reported missing on September 19, 2019, by the owner of the rental property she was staying in at Coral Bay, St. John, Virgin Islands, when she failed to check out as planned. Upon entering the property, the owner found all of her belongings, but there was no sign of Lucy, which prompted him to phone the police and report her missing. A preliminary search showed that Lucy had left her backpack and passport in the rental apartment, and it's theorized that she went hiking in the Virgin Islands National Forest and possibly encountered trouble while out on her hike. The Virgin Islands Police Department quickly began their search for Lucy, searching on land and in the water for her. Carl Caesar, who is a spokesperson for the Virgin Islands Police, said in a statement to CNN on September 25, 2019, "The search now includes some of the most remote and rugged areas of the park. The terrain is very steep and thickly vegetated, while conditions are hot, wet, and humid. Much of the southern shoreline of St. John is cliff and borders, and access is limited to swimming in from a small watercraft." During the initial search for Lucy, the island was hit by the threat of a tropical storm, which only complicated the search efforts. It also deepened the concern for investigators who wondered whether Lucy had access to water and shelter. A few days after Lucy was reported missing, searchers found her daypack on the Ramhead Trail, but according to investigators, the daypack offered them little information. Lucy's family haven't given up in their quest for answers and are asking anyone with information to please come forward and contact the Virgin Island Police Department at 340-776-9110. Well, friends, there you have it. another 10 strange cases of missing people from our national parks. I look forward to your comments, but please keep it friendly and respectful. Many times, the family and friends of these victims watch these videos and read the comments. So please don't say anything you would want to read if it was your friend or family member being discussed. Until we meet again, be good to yourselves and each other. I'll see you just a little farther on down the trail. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time.